That's the best way that we've learned to really build relationships. So, in client and building our client inventory, because, then you come to understanding who we are, what we're about, what you're getting yourself into, rather than, just being one of the top big dogs and getting a name out that way and not really having any frame of reference as to why they're coming to you in the first place. So that's the biggest way that we build our business, for example.
Nathan, welcome to the show today.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So you're pretty decorated in the property management industry in general. And for those of you guys don't know, that Nathan's the regional vice president for First Communities, a company that we actually hired to work with us to keep our properties running well. And they've done a fantastic job. But Nathan, how'd you get into the industry? How'd you get started? Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you again. So I got into the industry. Basically, I've been in the industry technically all my life. When I was a child, my dad was a appraiser in the single family residential business. So, I remember going to, out on appraisals and being completely bored and saying, I want nothing to do with this real estate stuff, because all they do is take pictures and kind of, add value to everything. But from there, he ended up buying some single family residential that, and mixed multifamily just on a smaller scale in Savannah, Georgia. So I dabbled as a manager with that when I was in college. And then I got my real estate license when I was in 2006, and I was in Statesboro. And I'll never forget, like, getting that license, being super excited about it, being ready to take care of my family. And then, like, I go to the broker, I'm in the real estate office, and the broker's like, we're so used to getting a lot more calls than this. It's always really hot. We're going to get some leads. I promise you, everything's going to come through. Obviously, little did I know that it was on the preface of that big, recession, the Great Recession, the housing crash. So from there, I had to find a job, and I had to figure out what I was going to do. And there's a local headhunter that's really popular named Dorothy Long. And she got me hooked up in the industry. And I thought I was just going to roll in and be a property man. She was like, no, let's step it back a little bit. You got to be a leasing consultant first. So I started as a leasing consultant and worked my way up from there.
Yeah, and to get to kind of the RVP level, it's pretty, you have to really be good to get to that phase. So Nathan's one of the first people that I was introduced to. When we were actually changing our management situation over to First Communities. And I remember the process. Now, it was really cool to have Nathan come in and help with the transition. So when you guys get into, sourcing and looking for clients and the client acquisition side, what kind of people typically come to you looking for business? And then do you guys just accept anyone, or is there some kind of a vetting process?
Yeah, so that's a great question. We get all sorts of people that are interested in coming to business with us. The majority of our business comes through word of mouth. So, we're connected with you now, which we have a great relationship that's building, and we love to connect with other people. But at the same time, we want to be referenced by you, for example, to other people, and vice versa. We want you to get a reference about us from other clients. That's the best way that we've learned to really build relationships. So, in client and building our client inventory, because, then you come to understanding who we are, what we're about, what you're getting yourself into, rather than, just being one of the top big dogs and getting a name out that way and not really having any frame of reference as to why they're coming to you in the first place. So that's the biggest way that we build our business, for example.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. So when you get into a relationship with someone, obviously, there's a bit of a process. Ours was a little bit faster, but how do you're getting owners, they typically have some kind of structure behind what they're doing. And so does your company. How do you guys mesh the two? Because that can be a challenge in itself. You got maybe a company with a different culture over here. You guys have your processes and systems built. That can be challenging. What's your guys' secret to making that work?
Well, I mean, it doesn't work out in every occasion, obviously. We want to do the best that we possibly can for every client that we have, and every client that comes to the door. So you have that vetting process that you were mentioning, and you kind of talk about things at the front end, and you hope everything's going to work out long term. But once you get into the business, it's kind of like a marriage. It's you got a relationship that you're starting, whether you're a newlywed and you're just getting started, or this is your second marriage. I mean, you're coming into the relationship with trust issues and things that you really need to learn about each other, and that happens over the course of a long time. Obviously, we have some clients that we've had for over 30 years, some relationships that are really, really long. The business that we have has been around for over 40 years. So our relationships, stem back to that time. And it's all about, in my opinion, and I think that all of the people in our company and our founder would agree with this, is that it's all about first choosing the right people that you have working for you and at the top of your organization. People with character that is deeply embedded in with integrity, and people that are going to do the right things at all times, and also that they have that drive to do things right and to do the best that they possibly can in their business. Because you can have integrity, but if you're not driven to do a good job for an asset that at the end of the day is not yours, you're managing it for somebody else, then it really doesn't matter how honest you are or how good you are. You're going to fall short for what the client is looking for.
In hindsight, when we first got started, we were much too hands off with our property managers. We were like, wow, the property managers we need to empower them to manage everything. And so we basically just, looked at numbers and reports early on. And now in looking at other of our peers, or many of them, I mean, not all of them, but some of them are almost, integrated somehow with our property manager, like in a weird point. But the bottom line is that most experienced syndicators, us now also, are much more actively involved with our property management company before. So there's maybe two extremes, right? One's too hands off, one's too involved. Where is the sweet spot for you? What does that look like? What do you see working between property managers and owners?
I wish I could give one answer to that, but it's every client, every management asset management company is different. Every management company is different. But for us, as long as we go into the relationship understanding that there's going to be some trials that come up, and we're just going to do our best to talk through them. We're going to do our best to work through them. We're going to be transparent and honest about the things that are causing us hassles and we want you as a ownership group to be transparent and honest with us for the things that are causing you, the most amount of worries at night as well. I think that the sweet spot really comes down to anything that is going to impact the team's ability to get the job done or to spend time with their teams or their clientele. Then you might be overstepping your boundaries, because if you're hindering us from doing the job that you're paying us to do, whether it's working with our team members or it is working with our residents, then we're going to have a challenge performing for you. If we're spending so much time on phone calls, because there's a lot of situations where there's a lot of lengthy phone calls that you want to get all the information you possibly can. Well, every minute that we're spending on the time with the client, we're not spending that time developing our team, and we're not spending our time, working on these relationship buildings with our residents as well. They're all crucial. We need to be able to keep you informed. You need to understand what's going on in your properties. We totally understand that. But at the same time, there does need to be a nice, healthy balance of giving us our time to make sure that we're performing for you the best.
Typically, they're coming with, I would assume you're getting clients that are coming to you with broken properties. It's not, they're typically coming to you because they had a bad experience somewhere else and they're looking for a solution. So your guys' job essentially is to come in and figure out the problem with the property or properties and fix them. What is your guys' kind of process for analyzing that and then working towards a solution?
Well, the first step is always to get the most amount of intel that we can from you, and that, what you're bringing to us. That is crucial, because every property is different, and every property, whether it's a new property that we're going through due diligence on and we're onboarding and you have no experience on that property, or it's a property that you do have experience on, the information is vital. So we need as much information as possible, step one, to be able to get the job done as best as possible. I think the process is, really just diving in, learning the property on our own, obviously, and talking and working with the people that are on site. Hopefully you'll be able to maintain a strong manager that's on the site when you take it over, because that obviously, as everybody knows, can do a lot of damage to a property. One person can bring a property down pretty fast. So hopefully you've got a nice connection, whether it's on the maintenance side or on the property management side, that can really give you the information you need so that you can build off of that and you're not working from scratch.
Yeah, I remember we had one of our more challenging properties in this was before you guys, but it was in Arkansas. We couldn't figure it out. We're like, this is just the most challenging property ever. And we sat there and it was like, okay, that site staff has never been right. And the first thing we had to do, even though it was painful, was fix that. Once that was fixed, it's like, okay, then things got better. And we've seen that kind of progression over and over again, where it's like, you have to focus on fixing the staff. And one of the cool things about when we moved over to First Communities is we were like, you know what, these guys have economies of scale inside of the market that we're in mostly. So, being able to have those kind of resources on a local level is, I think, super important as an owner. You want to have those kind of abilities to tap in. What kind of market, I guess your market like dynamic have you guys, or the inflection into the market, have you guys been able to make in order to attract clients inside of Atlanta?
Well, most of what we've been able to do inside of Atlanta, again, goes back to word of mouth. We have established a very strong relationship for a long period of time in this market. This is where we started. This is where we were founded. So this is where we kind of got going, and people know us for that. So thankfully, this market is a pretty easy one for us to handle. Now, if you start to ask us what we're doing on other markets, it's a little bit more complicated. We want to make sure that we understand the market well before we just dive into that market.
So how do you guys select what markets you're going to go into?
A lot of times we won't even go into a market if we don't have a presence there in the first place. We are in markets where we have some one-off properties, and they're challenging. In fact, right now I'm going through a challenging property that's in another state, and it's alone by itself. And there's no one there to go pick up the pieces when things fall apart. So, you don't have an on-site team ready to jump into that. A regional team ready to go in there and start fixing the problem. So thankfully, again, with Atlanta, we have a big bench here. We have a lot of properties. We have a lot of people that we can kind of pull on as resources. We can depend on each other from a corporate level, regional level, to figure out solutions to problems. But if we have a property that's unless that we feel we have a long relationship with a client, or a good established relationship with a client, we likely would not go into a market that is a one-off market. We would select markets where
it puts you guys behind a little bit, because you're like, listen, we just don't have the resources here. Realistically, we'll do it as a favor type situation, but we're starting behind the 8 ball here, because we just don't have the same influence inside of the market. There's other people that may have those relationships already built that exist. So using your guys' strengths, how do you guys really lean into your strengths in that capacity? How are you building benches, and what kind of resources are you able to obtain being local in a market?
Yeah, so this is the most challenging thing that we have going on. And one of the things that we have going on in meetings, every single time we meet from a corporate level, we're talking about how we could build our bench, how we can strengthen our bench, and how we can, use our resources. And honestly, I can't tell you how many conversations that we have about this ongoing. Right. What we want to do is make sure that we have access, and we're using the best technology possible to be able to attract the people that are out there. I don't want to get into too many details, but we're exploring some things right now. We're just willing to do whatever it takes to outsource, people into our environment, and try to make connections that will help us build our especially on the maintenance side, where we're having the most amount of troubles. We've tossed around ideas like schools and tech schools, and building those, and outsourcing people from other countries. We're thinking of everything that we possibly can to build our bench. I would say that is what makes us successful in Atlanta the most, is that we have our people here. That we are, our corporate office is located in Sandy Springs. So we have the ability to kind of like get together and all put our heads together to try to solve this particular market and go out and see the sites and go out and talk to the people. And, you know, we're at a grocery store and we're talking to a great clerk that, you know, might be a good leasing associate. You never know. My point is that you're always trying to find people that could be a good resource for you here in the city. You know, going to other markets though, like you said, it's just, you know, you're behind the 8 ball. You can't really establish those types of relationships. And there are plenty of, we probably could be we're a mid to large company in terms of how many units we have overall. We could probably be a huge company by now, but we don't want to sacrifice our relationships with our clients in the middle of that. Because then all along the way, what kind of, you know, relationship are you steamrolling with your clients that have properties in, I don't know, Tulsa, Oklahoma? I hope we don't have any properties in Tulsa.
It's funny because you feel like you're doing your owner a favor. Like if you had long relationships and you go into a new city, and we've had a property manager where we kind of did it. We were working for years and we're like, let's go into this new city. They're like, oh, we're not in that city. Oh, come on. And we said, okay. And the results were very, very mixed. And they were trying to, of course, you know, help us, but at the same time, they don't have the bench that you're talking about, the resources there. And so therefore they couldn't perform in the same way that they did in their core. And so, you know, sometimes I look at it and go, you know, it's probably a mistake for us to ask them and a mistake for them to agree to do it. And I think, you know, the bench is everything. I mean, it is everything. The leasing agents, maintenance staff, the processes you have, it's everything. And that's really what makes you guys so strong is that bench you have in a particular area. But I think that was a mistake that we made early on. We should have just simply gone to a new city and find someone who's got a deep bench in there. Yes, now you're dealing with another property manager with a different system, which is also irritating. But it's still going to get better results, I think. I mean, we can debate that later on, but I think that was a mistake that we had made.
This is a little bit of a niche question, but I think it's probably on everyone's mind. How do we solve the maintenance crisis, if you will? So for those, just a little bit of background, guys, there's like, and a lot of you probably know that they're listening right now, but it's kind of like a dying art in a way, where there's not as many people looking to be in this particular area of the industry. So it makes it more challenging, I think, if you're in like a secondary or tertiary market where it's really thin labor pool in the side, but it's just struggle in general. And every site needs, you know, 3 maintenance guys, 2-3 maintenance guys. And if, you know, it's hard to find those, but I'm just curious. So I'd love to get your insight. Like, how are you guys kind of overcoming that issue for the most part?
So for the most part, in the markets that we have good bench strength, we're able to kind of help sometimes here and there. We're building out different teams of floating people that we can, you know, use in different properties. You know, one of the challenges that we're coming across was prior to the pandemic, there were and these employees were starting to go work for hotels, and these maintenance guys were starting to go work for hotels. The reason was they were staying inside all day long. It was cool and everything. And then they're also not on call as frequently, or they sometimes not on call at all. So trying to overcome those barriers is going to be I think the biggest thing that we can do to take the next step. So you know, how can we support the teams to reduce maybe the amount of on-call hours? How can we give the people the knowledge to be able to grow, and they feel like they actually have a future within this maintenance organization to grow into different positions within our company, or obviously within our company. Additionally, you know, we want to take off the burden as much as possible that we can of the scheduling or the unnecessary calls, like a call center, for example, to do troubleshooting and things of that nature, rather than sending out. That's the hardest part, right? Being sent out, these guys would be sent out on Saturday at 2 p.m. when they're with their family, and they get there and then they flip a breaker to turn the air conditioner back on. You know, like, it's just these poor guys, they're suffering, their life is suffering in that regard. So understanding that, I think, is the number one thing that, you know, to start, you have to understand those problems that they're dealing with, and then work to overcome them slowly but surely. Now we're outside the pandemic for the most part, right? We're on the other side, but we're just, you know, a lot of these people, like you said, it's a dying art. They've moved on, they're doing other things. Some of them are retired. It was already kind of getting to be a dying, you know, group of people. not literally, but they're getting, the group of people were getting aged, and they didn't want to be out on the sites as much. Then the pandemic hit, and now we're kind of in the situation. So it is very tough. I'm not going to sit here and lie. Obviously, that you and I have talked about it plenty of times.
Mhm.
But we think that we have a few good plans in place to really help us turn that around, without sharing all our secrets. But we're definitely trying to do some things.
So what do you think, Nathan? So you guys have been around since 1978. And that is such a long time. You actually, and this is public knowledge, but you at one point left the company and came back to the company. What are you guys doing over at First Community, without giving away all your secrets, like you mentioned? What do you guys do differently than other management companies out there that sets you guys apart to create this kind of special organization?
I get a little excited talking about this, honestly. I appreciate you mentioning that. There's no secrets here, honestly. I talk about this when I'm talking to candidates for employment. I talk about it with you guys. It comes down to having a great group of people at the top of our organization. Really, from the founder to now our CEO, Mitch Harrison, and all the other guys that are at the top, and girls that are at the top of the structure. They're just good people that want to work hard and are smart. They're intelligent people that they want to put their best foot forward for the business. They really care not only about First Communities and our long history, but they care about the people that they're working with. So we establish those relationships, and we give you, a lot of times, as much as we can, we try to give a dedicated regional. Obviously, if you only have a couple properties, we can't do that, but we're always thinking about our relationship with the ownership company. How can we make them the most satisfied with who they're dealing with, and the people that they're dealing with?
Yeah, and dealing with that, Nathan. So just in general, how would somebody that's like an owner or syndicator like us, how would they select a good property management company? Like it's not a fit. Like us with you, we work through our initial relationship, and it's becoming a really great thing. But there's other organizations out there, other owners that probably wouldn't be a great fit with you guys. How should someone on the ownership side go and vet a property management company?
Yeah, I think what you did was perfect. We got on a camera like this, and we looked each other face to face, eye to eye, and we talked about, obviously if we can meet in person, that's a better situation. If we could go, have a meal together, we can talk and discuss business. Really, it's kind of like hiring for me, it's kind of like hiring a new employee, right? The best situation is you can get in is to kind of like get to know each other. Get to know, because that's the first part. How is the relationship? What kind of trust do you guys have with one another? So I'd say the first initial step, of course, is just to not just take a phone call, not just talk word of mouth, but also just really kind of spend some time on a video call, getting to know each other, or in person if you can.
How frequently do you meet with the ownership? And then what do you guys review, or what reports do you share? What metrics, what does that look like?
When you say who, how frequently, what people, like, for example, myself, or
yeah, someone who's maybe not gotten into a syndication before, or they're struggling with their property manager, what is your cadence for interfacing with the ownership? Is it once a week? For how long? And then what do you guys review on that call? What have you seen working there?
Yeah. Again, this goes back to our desire to, make every client as happy as possible and satisfied as possible. So it really comes down to what their wishes are when it comes to what we're reviewing. But the metrics that we generally have, and this goes different from client to client, is we'll share a weekly report with our clients about their property and how they're performing. And those weekly reports vary, again, from client to client. I've seen some that have 4 tabs, and some people, some ownership groups come back and say, we don't even want that information. And then we have some others that have 15 tabs, and we're talking about, the details of every single person on the AR. Those are the extremes where I would say that there's that balance you're starting to interfere with. But at the same time, we're open to share. We have a monthly financial report that we provide on through after vetting the financials out with the ownership group. So we'll send those out in a packet that you can then give to your investors or whoever that you have that you're working with, or however you want to keep those. And it's just an ongoing conversation. We're open. Our regional manager, that's what I'm saying earlier, giving you the right people, the people that want to be, they're not just, focused on First Communities, but they're focused on your behalf and being successful for you, letting y'all have that relationship and letting it be as fluid as you need it to be, to give you the information that you need is what we do.
Yeah, when property management and asset management in general, I mean, things just move really slowly. Like it's just, oh my gosh, the occupancy is low, collections are low, we have an issue with blah, blah, blah. And then you do a bunch of stuff and it just takes so much time to show an effect. What is your advice to someone maybe who's struggling with a property manager and they're watching these metrics and because you have to give it time, right? But what do you guys do to set expectations with the ownership? What's reasonable, right? You can't expect occupancy to jump that 10% in 24 hours, right? It's just unreasonable. And some inexperienced operators are frustrated by that. And they might say, oh my gosh, we need to part ways, when that's the worst thing you can do, because any property manager it's gonna take a while to get up to speed. So how do you manage expectations in that way?
So, I think the best way to manage those expectations is to have an open door policy, a responsive nature about you, that you're open to collaborating with the ownership group and really working through the challenges. Garrett and I ran into a situation where he presented us with a program and an idea to fix a problem. And maybe a stubborn, management company would have said, no, I don't want you meddling in our business. The only times that First Community doesn't want the client it's your property, right? The only time we don't want you meddling in the business is when it's going to be something that is going to cause some sort of liability for you. It all falls back on, what's the best interest for you. Of course, it's in our interest. We want to go another 50 years. We don't want to end this after 50 years. So we want you guys to go have a long lasting relationship. So, I think an open door, collaborative environment where we can talk through the challenges and we're not avoiding your phone call because we don't want to deal with the fact that our occupancy isn't reaching the goal that we initially set as an objective. Sometimes we set objectives, but we can't hit those objectives. We think that things are going to go better than they are, but we don't understand all of the things that are going to come from that. So again, keeping an open door. And then one of the things that I really liked, what I learned when I was kind of, younger in my career was, there's nothing better when it comes to our relationship. There's nothing better than bad news fast. We should be telling you when we're not hitting our targets or something happened on your property as soon as humanly possible, because it's going to be bad news for you. But if you wait, it's just festering. It's just causing you more anxiety and it's going to cause you more problems down the road.
Yeah. And what I really liked also is you said, you hired us to solve problems. There's, a lot of people, they think, at least on our side, or if they're newer, they're like, oh, I buy a multifamily property and then we throw it to the property management company and it gets fixed and then it works and then we make money and that's how it goes. And the reality is it's really, there are things that come up, especially if you have older buildings. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that you can't even imagine that happen. And it's got to be a collaborative effort. And if you have a really good, strong management company with smart people that can think through problems, it's really what you need as an owner. You just need someone that can go in there and you trust them to help fix your problems. Now, there's going to be some problems that come up that maybe they can't fix on their own. They need ownership input, or they need resources or things like that as things go along. And, I'm curious on your side, what kind of resources could an owner bring into the relationship that might be helpful, just to keep things progressing along?
Yeah, that's a great question. One that I haven't really had to think of because we're always trying to solve problems, right? But, I think most importantly, the things that you can bring is your experience and is your knowledge of what you've experienced. Now, if you're a relatively new investor or new ownership group, then just this open communication that we have, Garrett, with one another, where we are in communication about what's going on, you being open to it is really crucial as well. Also, understanding, this is another big thing that I think is really important to this process. understanding what your goals or objectives or property performance levels are for that property, understanding what your, what the cash on hand is going to be, where you can pull funds from other places in order to supply the business. Understanding your resources is also really crucial, because I mean, in certain circumstances, just being open and transparent about, hey, this property needs to be here by this point, or we're going to have challenges. These are the challenges we're going to face. And if you guys are being open and honest with us about those types of things, it kind of completely transforms the conversation for us. And we have access to the resources that you have.
Such a good point. It's, think of like as an owner, you have all these goals that you need to hit on the financial side for your investors. You don't share those with the higher level people at the management company so that it can be properly conveyed down to the site, where they don't understand those goals. You're going to put yourself in a pretty bad situation. So, for an example, we knew, we're like, hey, this is our plan for this site. We're going to refinance this one. The one down the street, we're going to sell it because of X, Y, Z. This is the timeline. This is how we're looking at these things. This is our financial situation in general with the lender. This is where we're getting pinched. This in these circuits, all those things are important to share with the management company, and you have to be in a relationship where you feel comfortable doing that. And so, I think that's what's made our relationship successful, is that we've been able to kind of help you guys understand that as they come up. And those kind of conversations are the ones you need to be having with your management company in order for everyone to succeed. So it's really cool. It's been a really awesome experience seeing how we've been able to grow in our relationship and just see the progress that we've been able to make from where we were before. So it's been really cool having you on the show, Nathan. How can people get in touch with you or get involved with what you guys got going on if they want to?
So, I can obviously share my email address, and we can, they can find our website. Our website is very simple. It's firstcommunities.com. So, you can find information about us there. That's the best way, I would say. But my name is Nathan Ridgway. So it's in Ridgway at firstcommunities.com. We have an open door. We're open to talk to anybody, and I appreciate, Garrett, you invited me on the show, but also really just the unique relationship that you just got done mentioning. It is really nice to have a relationship with a ownership group where we're open, we're transparent, and also thanks for making this opportunity feel like one of those Zoom calls that we have, not something where I feel nervous or overwhelmed. So I appreciate that.
It's a conversation.
It's a conversation.
It's a fireside
Cool.
chat.
Well, yeah. Well, Nathan, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.